Good morning. Um, I hope you had a good night. I kind of just hung out and watched Netflix. Hopefully, you did something fun outside, although it was freezing. I took Coco for a walk and she had on her little jacket and she was like, "Do-do-do-do-do," as fast as she could. So that was pretty cute. So I'm going to read another chapter of All the Answers by Kate Mesner. If you remember in the last chapter, Ava was worried about passing her math test. Who doesn't worry about that? Well, probably Mrs. Weiner. So it's called Chapter 2, The Voice in Ava's Ear. Breathe in 4 counts, then out 4 counts. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Angela, who was into yoga and meditation and other things Ava's mom called hippie hobbies, had told Ava that breathing in through her nose and out through her mouth would help her calm down. But it wasn't working today. All that nose breathing only made Ava notice the smell of sharpened pencil, which was like somebody screaming in her ear, "You have a math test today." Is everyone prepared for class? Mr. Farkley looked up and down the rows, eyebrows ready to fly if he spotted some poor pencil-less person. Before we get started, I have forms for our upcoming field trip. Bring them back signed with your $10 by next week. Mr. Barkley walked up and down the rows of desks, dealing out permission slips. Ava glanced at hers before she slid it into her backpack. Adirondack Adventure Challenge was printed at the top in big, dark letters. Below that was a photograph of a girl flying down some zip line thing with her mouth open like she was screaming. Ava supposed it was meant to look like fun. It didn't. She stuffed the paper to the bottom of her backpack, down with the banana slime from when she forgot to take it out of her snack 2 weeks ago. Ugh. All right, desk cleared, pencils out, brains sharp. Mr. Farkley dropped a test on Ava's desk. She swallowed hard and picked up her pencil. The first 4 problems were easy. Tess did that to trick you into thinking everything would be okay. But the 5th one made Ava's throat dry and squeeze. She should have reviewed those formulas on the way to school. What was Sophia's pie supposed to remind her of? Ava pulled out her scratch paper from under the test pages and doodled all the maybes. Pi equal 3.14, pi r squared, 2 pi r squared, pi r, 2 pi r something else. The clock ticked. Ava's eyes burned. She blinked a few times, then squeezed them shut. She knew she was going to have to multiply something by something, and she was pretty sure pi was involved. Ava tried taking a few more 4-count breaths. She drew some pies on her scratch paper for inspiration, apple and cherry. They were not inspiring pies. They were lopsided and lumpy and offered no help whatsoever. Ava doodled in big, bubbly letters. What is the formula to find the circumference of a circle? And a voice said, 2 pi r. Ava jerked her head up. The kids around her were hunched over their papers, working as if no one had said or heard anything. But whoever answered her questions hadn't even bothered whispering. It was loud enough that the whole class should have heard. Ava, Mr. Farkley was staring at her, eyebrows raised. Is there a problem? No, sorry, I was thinking. She looked down at her paper and carefully, slowly circled the equation, 2 pi r. Whoever answered her question was right. She remembered now. So she did the problem, checked it over, and looked up again. The voice couldn't have been Sophia's. She was way across the room. Luke Varnway was the only person sitting close to Ava, but the voice wasn't a boy's. It had sounded like Ava's mom or Aunt Jayla. How could nobody else hear it? Ava took a deep breath. Maybe it was like Aunt Jayla told her. If she could just calm herself down, a little voice in her head would give her the answer she studied. Maybe after all the tests she'd bombed, her little voice had finally decided to show up. It was about time. Ava took another breath and read the next question about the area of a circle. Was that one pi r or pi r squared or 2 pi r squared? Voice, Ava thought. I could use some help here. She waited, but the voice in her head was already gone. Come back, Ava thought, please. She tried writing down the question, like she had before. Maybe she needed to see it on paper for her voice to kick in. She wrote, what is the formula for the area of a circle? Pi r squared, the voice said. It was back. But it wasn't in Ava's head. It wasn't her voice at all. It sounded like it was coming from someone right there in the room. Ava looked around again. How could nobody have heard? Ava made herself look down before Mr. Farkley saw her eyes wandering. She used the voice formula to work out 2 problems. But the next questions were about triangles, and Ava couldn't remember the triangle stuff. So she wrote, how do you figure out the third side of a triangle? The voice said, that depends on what kind of triangle it is. You'll need to be more specific. Ava's mouth dropped open. She snuck a glance up at Luke, who was chewing his pencil, still working on the circle problems. He certainly wasn't the one talking to her. Ava looked back at her paper. This triangle had a right triangle angle. She knew that. So she wrote, a right triangle. Ava waited. The clock ticked one of those big, echoey, you were so running out of time on this test talks. But the only voice she heard was Mr. Farkley's. 5 minutes until the bell. I'll take papers up here when you're done. A bunch of kids got up, walking past Ava's desk to drop off their test. Come on, Ava thought. She tried again. What is the formula for figuring out the third side of a right triangle when you know the first 2 sides? If that wasn't specific enough, then the voice in her head was a big fat jerk. But apparently her voice liked the new question. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, it said. This time, Ava didn't bother looking up. She wrote down the formula and figured out the problem with a minute to spare, then tucked her scratch paper in her backpack and added her test to the pile on Mr. Farkley's desk. How'd you do? He asked. Fine, she answered, like she always did, but this time it was true. So the next chapter is Chapter 3, Secrets of the Chocolate Chip Cookie Club. I love chocolate chips. So I will also be posting your read aloud for today. I'm going to do it right away. So I hope you enjoyed the next chapter, and chapter 3 will be tomorrow. Bye, guys.